summit plant.
The clock on the bedside table read 2:17 a.m. Adam was deep in the exhausted sleep earned by a week of hard labor. The only sounds were the slow, rhythmic breathing of Charlie in the next room and the quiet, comforting crackle of the embers in the fireplace. The phone shrieked, a harsh, immediate sound that tore the silence apart. Adam grabbed the satellite phone, his instincts instantly sharpened. The caller ID was restricted, labeled simply Charles, Site Manager. "Hello, this is Adam," he answered, his voice thick with sleep, but alert. The voice on the other end was rough, panicked, and strained against a background of metallic clangor. "Adam, listen carefully. It's the summit plant, 30 kilometers north of you. We have a catastrophic gas breach, primary pipeline rupture. I need you here immediately. The sensors are redlining." Adam rubbed the sleep from his eyes, sitting up. "Charles, you know that road. It's 40 kilometers of unpaved hell through the worst part of the jungle, and it's midnight. We're 4 hours away in this weather. Call the local emergency crew." "They won't come. No one will drive that road now," Charles insisted, his voice cracking. "There have been reports all week. Unidentified, hostile figures on the North Access Trail. We're locked down. The local contractors backed out. But this is lethal, Adam. If the pressure isn't contained, the entire valley goes up." Adam was already shaking his head, reaching for the end call button. The risk was insane. The territory was too compromised. The line disconnected. But before Adam could swing his legs out of bed, the phone shrieked again. This time, the caller ID read, "High Authority, Priority 1. Adam answered immediately. The voice was cold, professional, and devoid of regional accent, a voice accustomed to issuing final commands. "Adam, I understand you have declined the emergency call regarding the summit plant gas breach. That is unacceptable. The environmental and economic stakes are beyond your comprehension. Complete the containment. We are authorizing a direct wire transfer of $500,000 upon confirmed stabilization. Your services are required now." The silence on the line was the final command. The money was staggering, more than Adam cleared in 2 years. He looked at the window where the black jungle pressed against the glass, and then at the phone in his hand. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. He woke Charlie with a shove. "Get up, gear up. We have a drive to make." Charlie blinked sleepily, then saw Adam's face and the sat phone. "What's the emergency?" "A lethal gas leak, 40 clicks, and 500,000 reasons not to say no," Adam replied, pulling on his thermal gear. "We take the 4x4, and we take the .45. The road is clear, but the welcome might not be." Adam and Charlie were on the road within 15 minutes, the powerful 4x4 churning over the rough, unpaved North Access Trail. The truck's high beams cut a narrow, insufficient tunnel through the absolute darkness of the dense jungle. The air was cold, heavy, and thick with the overwhelming damp scent of vegetation. The silence was the most immediate threat. It was broken only by the engine's sustained growl and the constant, unnerving crunch of gravel under the tires. Both men were alert, silent, listening for any sound that wasn't the truck, any sign of the hostile figures Charles had warned them about. The drive was agonizingly slow, the road worse than Adam had remembered, forcing them to crawl over exposed roots and deep ruts. They were 10 kilometers deep into the jungle when the first anomaly occurred. It happened without warning. A creature exploded out of the thick undergrowth and launched itself directly into the path of the truck. Adam slammed the brakes, the 4x4 sliding violently on the wet earth. The impact was sickeningly dull, followed by a harsh squeal of pain that cut through the engine noise. Adam cut the engine instantly. The sudden silence was vast, punctuated only by the painful, frantic rustling in the undergrowth ahead. "Stay here," Adam ordered, grabbing the heavy-duty maglite. Charlie reluctantly lowered the window, the .45 pistol resting heavily in his lap. Adam stepped out into the immense, suffocating darkness. He shone the powerful beam onto the damaged creature near the roadside. It was severely injured, its body convulsing slightly. It wasn't a coyote, a bear, or any local animal Adam recognized. It was a creature roughly the size of a large bobcat, but its proportions were subtly, profoundly wrong. Its limbs were too long, too slender, and its coat, a mottled, unnaturally pale gray, was far too smooth for the rough jungle environment. Its eyes, when the light caught them, were huge, black, and reflected the light with an unsettling, synthetic shine. "What the hell is that?" Charlie whispered through the open window, his voice tight. "That's not native." The creature let out a low, pathetic moan, a sound of immense physical suffering.
Adam instinctively responded to distress. He might be carrying a weapon for protection, but his primary impulse was to repair what was broken. "It's hurt badly," Adam called back, carefully moving closer. "It's got internal injuries. We can't leave it here." Despite the escalating sense of dread and the absolute knowledge that they were already running critically late, the moral imperative was immediate. Charlie opened the passenger door. "Get some rope from the back," gently, Adam instructed. Working quickly, silently, and with extreme caution, they managed to secure the strange, injured animal. They loaded the struggling, unnaturally pale creature into the reinforced bed of the 4x4, covering it with a tarp. "We find a vet or a hospital near the plant," Adam said, climbing back into the driver's seat. He glanced at Charlie, whose face was etched with apprehension. They were now carrying a $500,000 gas breach repair kit, a firearm, and an unidentified, possibly exotic, severely wounded animal through a hostile jungle. The night was already fundamentally broken. Adam pushed the 4x4 forward, trying to maintain speed despite the rough terrain. The engine roared, chewing through the gravel and mud. They had covered barely another kilometer when the jungle's structure itself began to fail. The darkness intensified. It wasn't the natural absence of light. It was a sudden, aggressive absence of visibility. The high beams, which had been cutting through the night, suddenly became useless, absorbed by a profound, velvety blackness that pressed against the windshield. It was like driving into a pool of ink. The road, the very ground beneath their tires, vanished. Adam slammed the brakes. The heavy truck skidded violently before coming to a jarring halt. "What the hell was that?" Charlie gasped, gripping the dashboard. "We can't see anything." Adam tried the high beams again. The light simply disappeared 3 feet in front of the hood. The darkness was absolute. They needed to assess the situation. They exited the cab cautiously, Adam gripping the heavy maglite. As they stepped out, the profound blackness immediately receded. The road was suddenly normal again, wet, rutted earth, and dense jungle foliage lining the sides. The air was merely cold, not aggressively dark. The optical illusion had been instantaneous and perfect. The humidity must be playing tricks on the high beams, Adam rationalized, though the explanation felt thin and inadequate. "Charlie, wipe the windshield. I need to check the animal." Charlie moved to the front of the truck. Adam walked quickly to the back and yanked the tarp aside. The truck bed was empty. The ropes lay coiled, the thermal blanket was undisturbed, but the pale, unnaturally smooth-skinned creature was completely gone. No blood, no struggle, no evidence of its escape. "Charlie!" Adam yelled, his professional mask finally dissolving into pure alarm. "It's gone! The animal vanished!" As they both stood by the truck staring at the empty bed, the creature reappeared. Not beside the road, but directly in the center of the track, 30 feet ahead of the high beams. It was standing upright on 2 legs, its body twitching violently. Then, the final, undeniable structural failure occurred. The creature mutated. Its pale skin darkened and grew rough, its limbs thickened and elongated into powerful feral proportions. Its reptilian head swelled, the mouth tearing wide into a grotesque, fanged maw that dripped thick, viscous liquid. It was no longer an injured animal. It was a towering, ghoul-like figure of savage, skeletal hunger. It was not alone. From the blackness of the jungle lining the road, dozens of similar figures, lean, fast, and radiating pure cannibalistic malice, began to emerge, silently surrounding the truck. The nearest ghoul moved first, launching itself at the front tire. Its thick, powerful claws easily tore through the heavy-duty rubber. The tire let out a mournful, instantaneous whoosh of escaping air. They were trapped. "Drive! Drive now!" Charlie screamed, scrambling back toward the cab. Adam didn't hesitate. He threw the transmission into drive, flooring the accelerator. The powerful engine roared, but the 4x4 immediately pulled hard to the right, the punctured front tire grinding uselessly into the mud. He fought the wheel, trying to compensate for the sudden, violent asymmetry, but the rough terrain and the slick earth were too much. With a final, sickening crunch of bending steel and splintering wood, the heavy truck slammed sideways into a massive oak tree lining the road. The impact jarred their teeth and sent the expensive repair equipment in the truck bed skittering forward. Before they could recover, the rest of the ghouls descended.
Their attack was silent, coordinated, and terrifyingly efficient. While Adam checked the crumpled hood, the other ghouls focused on immobilization. With sickening, tearing sounds, the powerful claws ripped through the remaining front tire and the 2 rear tires. The truck slumped onto its rims, hopelessly trapped. One ghoul, its body skeletal and unnaturally long, scrambled onto the hood. Its immense black eyes fixed on the windshield, dripping the viscous fluid onto the glass. More figures clawed onto the roof and the sides, their movements unnaturally fast, their combined weight causing the wrecked truck to groan in protest. "We can't stay in here," Adam yelled, shoving the emergency door open. "They'll rip the metal apart." He emerged first, the heavy .45 pistol cold and functional in his hand. He didn't aim, he simply fired at the ghoul on the hood, the loud, sharp bang shattering the silence and the glass of the windshield. The lead round struck the creature in the chest. It let out a piercing, non-vocal screech, a sound of immense pain and fury, and tumbled backward onto the forest floor, convulsing violently. The immediate relief was countered by the sound of the gunshot echoing through the dense jungle. It was a dinner bell. Dozens more heavy footsteps erupted from the surrounding brush, rapidly approaching the site. "Charlie, get out, now!" Charlie burst from the passenger door, snatching a heavy length of iron pipe, a discarded piece of the gas repair kit from the wrecked truck bed. His face was a mask of grim determination and terror. The physical combat began instantly. 2 ghouls, their bodies radiating ravenous hunger, lunged toward Charlie. He swung the pipe defensively, connecting with a sickening crack against the arm of one creature, momentarily stunning it. Adam fired his pistol with desperate speed, dropping another ghoul that had lunged for the truck door. Bang! The creature collapsed with a wet thud. But there were too many. They were fast, they were organized, and they felt no pain beyond the momentary shock of the impact. The surrounding ring of creatures tightened, their skeletal bodies and massive claws a terrifying, endless wave. Adam heard the chilling click of his pistol. The magazine was empty. He dropped the useless weapon, his chest heavy with the realization of the ultimate structural failure. Their primary defense was gone, and they were surrounded by overwhelming, ravenous hunger. "Charlie, back to the truck! Pipe high!" Adam roared, pushing his friend backward against the crumpled metal. The sheer number of ghouls swelled exponentially. They poured out of the darkness, their skeletal forms moving with terrifying speed, their black, hungry eyes reflecting the ambient light. They were no longer waiting, they were attacking simultaneously. Charlie swung the heavy iron pipe in a desperate wide arc, connecting with a sickening thwack against the jaw of a lunging creature. The pipe bent slightly from the force, but the ghoul barely staggered, its focus absolute. Adam fought with pure adrenaline, using his own body as a barrier. A set of powerful, sharp claws raked across his ribs and abdomen. He cried out, the pain immediate and searing as the thick synthetic fabric of his shirt tore away, leaving deep bleeding lacerations. The wounds were not fatal, but the shock and blood loss were immediate taxes on his stamina. Charlie was slammed against the truck door. A ghoul seized his pipe, its massive fanged maw tearing open. Charlie screamed as the creature bit savagely into his upper arm, ripping away muscle and tissue. He pulled back, his arm a ruin of torn flesh and immediate gushing blood. "The phone! Call Charles!" Adam yelled, kicking a ghoul away from Charlie's legs. Charlie fumbled desperately for the satellite phone tucked into his pocket. He punched the preset number with a bloody thumb. "Charles, breach! It's not people! They're monsters! We're pinned down! We're out of ammo!" Charlie gasped into the mic, his voice thick with agony and terror. The voice on the other end, though strained, was still professional. "Hold position. We're coming. The specialized team is launching. We anticipate 15 to 20 minutes for extraction." "We don't have," Charlie tried to argue, but the ghoul swarm was already upon them. 2 powerful, lean figures seized Adam's legs, dragging him toward the jungle. Charlie was slammed against the truck door, his head striking the metal with a loud, sickening clang. The ghouls swarmed his wounded arm, their terrifying mouths opening in anticipation. The fight became futile, a desperate struggle against overpowering supernatural strength. Then, just as the ghouls were moments from delivering the final lethal blows, a new sound cut through the forest. The powerful grinding roar of diesel engines. Not one, but two heavy-duty trucks was heard in the far distance, rapidly approaching the site. Charlie's rescue convoy was arriving. Adam let out a desperate, pained cry of relief. But the relief was shattered instantly. The hundreds of ghouls surrounding them, their skeletal bodies radiating malicious intelligence, paused. They turned their attention to the distant, approaching lights.
In a terrifying, instantaneous display of coordination, the ghouls abandoned Adam and Charlie. The vast majority of the swarm surged back into the black jungle, running at impossible speed toward the incoming rescue vehicles. The failure was crushing. The rescue team was about to be instantly overwhelmed by the sheer, devastating number of creatures that had been hidden in the darkness. Adam and Charlie were left broken and bleeding, saved only to witness the inevitable destruction of their last chance. Adam lay slumped against the wrecked 4x4, his side wound gushing, his energy draining rapidly. Charlie, semi-conscious, was pinned by the creature he had struck, his breathing shallow. The silence from the surviving ghouls was terrifying. They had stopped their attack, reserving their remaining strength to guard the crippled prey. The distant sound of the approaching diesel engines grew louder, followed by the faint, muffled sound of shouting. The battle was beginning somewhere just out of sight. Adam knew they were minutes from death, either by the returning ghouls or the eventual collapse of the gas pipe that had brought them here. His mind, however, refused to focus on the pain or the immediate threat. Instead, in the face of absolute collapse, Adam's professional focus returned, sharp and clear. He bypassed the terror and the blood, concentrating only on the original job order. High gas leakage, summit plant, primary pipeline rupture. He forced his vision to clear, scanning the damage around the wrecked truck. The immense, powerful creatures had not just appeared randomly, they were drawn by the plant's core structural failure. Adam looked at the one remaining large ghoul, which was pacing restlessly nearby, its black eyes fixed on the distant sounds of combat. He noticed that the liquid dripping from its maw, the viscous fluid he had dismissed earlier, had a strange, metallic sheen. Then he saw the pipe. It was an old, heavy-gauge ventilation pipe, running horizontally just above the ground, hidden by the underbrush, clearly snaking away from the plant toward the deepest jungle. It wasn't a water line. It was a pressurized line marked with faded industrial yellow, a clear supplemental gas line used for auxiliary operations at the remote plant. Near the impact site of their crash, the pipe was fractured, leaking a barely perceptible cold vapor that mingled with the wet jungle air. The realization hit Adam with the force of a final, terrifying clarity. The gas wasn't just leakage, it was the supernatural energy source. The high gas leakage wasn't an environmental disaster, it was the feed system for the cannibalistic ghouls. The creatures had evolved to crave the specific chemical compound being vented by the plant's ruptured pipe. Adam looked frantically at the remaining options. He didn't have the tools to fix the pipe, he didn't have the strength to fight. He only had the ultimate structural solution: destruction. He saw the wrecked truck's fuel tank, slightly ruptured by the impact with the tree, dripping diesel slowly onto the ground nearby. Then he looked at the nearest remaining ghoul, the creature that had pinned Charlie, its attention momentarily diverted by the sounds of its swarm fighting the rescue convoy. Adam needed fire. He needed an overwhelming, destructive chemical reaction to cut off the food supply and neutralize the threat. He had to turn the very liability that brought them here, the gas leak, into their weapon. He forced his aching body to move. He realized his dropped pistol was still within reach, lying near the crumpled fender of the 4x4. The magazine was empty, but he remembered the last time he loaded it, securing a single, final round in the chamber for true emergencies. This was it. The large, pacing ghoul, the one guarding the crippled men, finally turned its black, hungry eyes back toward Adam. It stalked forward, its skeletal frame radiating intense, focused malice, ready to deliver the final lethal bite. Adam ignored the ghoul. He ignored the paralyzing pain in his ribs and side. He focused entirely on the small, silver pistol. With a slow, agonizing effort, he retrieved the weapon. He didn't aim at the creature. He aimed at the rupture in the truck's fuel tank, just inches from the ghoul and directly next to the fractured gas pipeline running beneath the ground. "Adam, no!" Charlie screamed weakly, realizing the suicidal brilliance of the plan. Adam steadied the weapon. The sight picture was clear. Fuel leak, gas leak, ghoul. With a final desperate resolve, he squeezed the trigger. The bang of the single shot was immense, sharp, and quickly swallowed by the detonation. The bullet struck the metal of the fuel tank with a high-pitched ping. Immediately, the leaking diesel fuel ignited, fueled by the volatile compound venting from the nearby gas pipeline. A massive, blinding fireball erupted, consuming the truck, the ground, and the immediate surrounding jungle in an overwhelming roar of orange and yellow flame. The initial shockwave of heat and sound was catastrophic. The nearby ghoul, enveloped instantly in the flames, let out a terrible high-frequency shriek, a sound of immense, unnatural agony, not of burning flesh, but of chemical and spiritual dissolution. Its skeletal form began to violently disintegrate.
The fire spread instantly, racing down the path of the fractured gas pipeline, creating a linear wall of intense, purifying flame. The sound and the chemical shockwave didn't just kill the creatures, they instantly dissolved the supernatural matter that formed them. The remaining ghouls, those fighting the rescue convoy just out of sight, let out a collective, horrifying wail that fractured the night. They were deprived of their energy source and dissolved by the overwhelming chemical reaction. In seconds, the area was engulfed in a blazing inferno. The hundreds of ghouls vanished, not leaving behind bodies or blood, but dissolving into billowing columns of black ash and smoke that were violently sucked upward by the immense heat. The terrifying horde was utterly wiped from existence. The distant sound of shouting quickly turned into the urgent, chaotic rush of footsteps approaching the clearing. The specialized rescue team, seeing the massive inferno, burst through the jungle line, their faces slack with shock, weapons drawn. They found the fight already over. Adam, protected momentarily by the shattered engine block, lay scorched and wounded, but alive. The overwhelming silence, the complete absence of the unnatural threat, was the final confirmation of their salvation. Adam lay scorched and wounded, the overwhelming heat of the inferno receding as the rescue team, hardened veterans in heavy tactical gear, finally reached the clearing. They found a scene of total destruction. The truck was a melted, burning ruin, and the ground was covered only in fine, oily black ash. There were no bodies, no blood, and no signs of the hundreds of assailants. The specialized team leader, a grim-faced man named Davis, surveyed the carnage. "What in God's name was this, Adam? We heard thousands of them. Where did they go?" "The gas, the pipeline compound. It was their food. The fire. The chemical reaction was the antidote." Charlie, suffering from severe bites and a probable concussion, was pulled from the wreckage, barely conscious. The truth was physically manifest. They had fought a conventional enemy, but defeated it with an unconventional chemical solution. Adam and Charlie were stabilized quickly and loaded into a medical transport truck. The journey to the nearest metropolitan hospital was a blur of trauma, sirens, and pain. They spent the next 8 long days in separate rooms, recovering from severe lacerations, chemical burns, broken bones, and the pervasive exhaustion of total combat. In the sterile, quiet nights of their recovery, they had time to reflect. They were haunted not by the horror of the attack, but by the physical proof of the solution. They learned that the compound venting from the plant was a highly unstable, genetically modified methane derivative, a perfect, addictive food source for the mutated ghouls. The fire had not simply burned them, it had violently dissolved their non-human anatomy. "They were like molds, Adam," Charlie whispered to him during a painful transfer to physical therapy, his arm in a heavy sling. "They were living off the plant's byproduct. We didn't kill them with lead, we killed them with chemistry." Adam nodded, running a thumb over the fresh, tight scar tissue on his side. The $500,000 transfer was pending. The high authority had kept its promise, but the cost had been exacted in flesh and sanity. They fixed the pipe by destroying the entire system that the pipe fed. The jungle road was not just compromised, it was actively hostile, an ecosystem of horror waiting for its next chemical meal. They were discharged with heavy medical warnings and deep, fresh scars. The fight had been won, but the threat remained. They knew the plant would eventually restart and the venting would begin again.
The jungle was still out there, ready to grow its next harvest of hungry ghouls. The security system of the natural world had been exposed as a terrifying biological fault line. That jungle road is still out there, hiding the ruins of the summit plant. If I gave you the coordinates, would you dare go in? Tell me in the comments, should the Phixer go looking for more?